This is the Fullerton Financial Hour with Stephanie and Steve Fullerton. Stephanie is the president and founder of Fullerton Financial Planning. Stephanie and her team believe in building lifelong relationships built on performance and trust to help you build wealth so you can reach retirement and make sure you stay retired. Welcome to the Fullerton Financial Hour, where your retirement dreams begin.
Welcome, I'm Megan Mozak here with Stephanie and Steve Fullerton from Fullerton Financial Planning right here in the Valley. Let's face it, none of us like a construction zone, right? Blocks your way, forces you to sometimes change your route, and it also, well, it makes you want to pull your hair out. It's bad enough on your morning commute, but it's even worse if it comes to your retirement. So today, Stephanie and Steve help point out some of the biggest potholes that could stall your retirement. And later, how to navigate your retirement journey. Plus, how many smart financial tools are in your retirement planning toolbox? In this week's Fullerton Factor, Stephanie rolls up her sleeves on a handy approach to income planning. Stephanie, Steve, it is great to be back with you.
Thanks, Megan.
Here in the Valley, we've all seen it, right? Those orange barrels. And it can be really frustrating. Brutal, Steve, that's a good word for it, especially if you're in a rush or your regular morning commute gets rerouted and you just feel like you're spinning, you're idling, you're not really going anywhere. And that's a bad feeling on the road. It's a really bad feeling if you're headed to retirement or in retirement. How do we know for sure if we're on the right route? How do we know if we're ready to retire?
That's a great question, because here's what you need to do. You got to have a roadmap. Megan, it's crazy that we spend more time planning vacation than we do our retirement. I don't know many people. Now, talk to some of our retirees out there, and they love, hey, let's get up in the morning and just hit the road. But most people, and I know for Steve and I, are in this category. When we go on a vacation, we want to know where we're going. If we need airline tickets, do we need a hotel? We have a plan put in place. That's the same way that it is as you prepare for retirement. You've got to begin to put a plan in place. Know where you're going. And it's always better to do it sooner than later.
Okay, so I like this idea of a roadmap, right?
Yes.
Which can really help you. I always like when I'm stuck in traffic and I'm trying to get to my destination and, road closed, my GPS reroutes me, which is really nice. Can you get that same sort of flexibility in a type of retirement roadmap, so to speak, Steve?
Yes, you can, actually. The scary part, though, is have you ever plugged in an address that you want to go to and then you just turn your brain off and you listen to the voice, not your wife, but the voice of the GPS kind of telling you where to go? Has it ever taken you to a wrong place? It has me.
Yes. So
that guidance needs to be revisited on a regular basis. But it is really important, and it's so nice. The technology is incredible nowadays. It used to be the old paper Rand McNally map. Now it's on your dashboard of your car or even on your phone. And it will tell you, there's a big delay coming up or something like that. But it's really, really important that as we plug in the information for a retirement plan, a retirement roadmap, that we just don't set it and forget it. It's something that needs to be revisited periodically, regularly periodically, just to ensure they're not taking us to another direction or we've put in a Glendale address rather than a Phoenix address.
And life happens. I mean, we might set out for it to look this way, and it's not. We see it happen. You've got this plan, we're going this direction, and then all of a sudden maybe you lose your spouse. Or, we have a client that we've made all these plans, and here they get ready for retirement. They go into retirement. The first week into retirement, Megan, the wife has a stroke. They're all of a sudden where they thought they were going, they no longer are going. And that's the strength and the power of working with retirement planners, because they should be sitting down with you at least once a year, maybe even sometimes a couple times a year, because you got to make adjustments. And I'm thankful that the GPS updates. For the longest time, we would give people our address, and they would end up in the neighborhood next to us because it hadn't been updated. People were getting lost. Once that GPS got updated, and all of a sudden now they've got our address to our house, they weren't lost. They knew exactly where they're going. And that's what we do, is we put retirement roadmaps into place so people know where they're going, but we're prepared for what if they have to make a detour.
That's good. So have a map, but make sure it's flexible. Make sure you're updating it,
Yes.
just like our GPS. Here's a question. I know you get this a lot. People wonder, okay, if I'm retiring this year, how long can I expect to be retired? What are you telling people in a modern day retirement?
Well, no one knows.
No.
We've all got a date and a time. We just don't know what that is. So we say, who knows, but you need to make sure you got enough money that will last as long as you do. Some people will come in and say, hey, I want to plan until I'm 80 years old or 85 years old. And I'm like, well, that is fantastic. What if you lived until you're 86 years old? That's a problem. So we create strategies that ensure we're going to have income, different streams of income that are not depending on each other, because if we hammer out a retirement, we know we're going to have income. The market's doing this isn't going to affect our lifestyle inside of retirement.
Yeah, we love to say, we hope for the best, plan for the worst.
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
That's a good way to look at it, because you're right about life, throwing those curveballs. We need to be constantly updating, and that really speaks to the communication that you have to have with your advisor. Okay, we're going to keep this conversation going after the break. Stephanie, Steve, thank you. And up next, it is hard to make a road trip without a map. So coming up, Stephanie and Steve help you understand the best way to reach your retirement destination. But first, here's how you can contact Stephanie, Steve, and the team at Fullerton Financial Planning. Stay tuned.
At Fullerton Financial Planning, relationships come first. Placing your trust in a financial advisor is an important decision. Finding that person who can build a plan that gives you confidence. We strive to help you fulfill your dreams and live the retirement you want.
Call us at Fullerton Financial Planning or visit us on the web.
It's about building a relationship with you, hearing your vision, and being with you every step of the way.
You're watching the Fullerton Financial Hour, where your retirement dreams begin.
We're glad you've tuned in today here with Stephanie and Steve. I think about taking a road trip. I know you've taken many with your family, and it's important to know, number one, where you are and where you want to go.
Yes.
And a map helps, right? But how often do people come to you and they're ready to leave their job and they have no map, no plan for their retirement destination?
Yeah, I would love to say never, but it's not true. I have it all the time. Steve, you do too. Our advisors, all the time, people come in, and I remember just recently a gentleman coming in last year, sitting down with me with his wife, had done an amazing job. They had this big 401k that had really benefited from the great markets that we've seen over the last recent years, and he was excited because he clearly believed and felt confident that he was ready to retire. In fact, he was going to retire about 4 or 5 months into 2020. And clearly he did, after we talked to him. And unfortunately, he came right before he was retiring. It would have been great to have him a little bit beforehand because of the strategies we put in place. We always hope that markets are going to do great, and we always hope that everything's going to turn out perfect. But what if the markets adjust, or what if it didn't? How do we make sure that when we go into retirement that we're going to be okay? Because I think that's important to know. And so as I was sitting down with him, and here we are, doing things and adjusting things. And he told me, Megan, now this is what his exact words were. He goes, I'm not really nervous about the market because I don't think it'll be way into 2020, maybe even into 2021, like this year, that he would see market corrections. And March happened of 2020. Now, I don't know if you remember that, but sure. Towards the third week of March, we had like a huge drop in our market. And his 401k went down over 50%. Wow. Now he's only 2 months from retiring. He felt devastated. Now fortunately, those markets came back up. It doesn't always happen that way, but it did recover. But he waited almost too late. Were we able to recover back from it? Yes. Were we able to throw some strategies in place to help him have a little bit more confidence as we look at retirement? Sure. But we want to work with you sooner than later. Be proactive, not reactive.
So what I'm hearing you say is, don't say I'm retiring tomorrow without a plan, Steve,
Right.
right?
There's a huge difference with retiring with a hope and retiring with a plan. Retiring with a plan is the way to go.
Okay, I've heard both of you say without income, there is no retirement. So let's talk about income. Where are retirees getting their income from these days?
Our goal is, as a firm, is if possible, we want to identify and create 5 different independent income streams. They're not relying on each other. Social Security, a pension if they have one, some retirement accounts, maybe some other strategies that work independent but in unison together. The reason that we like them to be independent is, let's say something happens at no fault of our own. It's not like a 3-legged stool, one leg goes away and you're going to fall over. If we have 5 and one would unintentionally go away, we're still going to be pretty stable. And if we hammer out that income plan for lifestyle, because that's what people want in the retirement is lifestyle, most of them, then this happening in the market isn't going to affect what our lifestyle is. So we really like to use things with contractual guarantees, maybe even an annuity with a contractual guarantee that we don't have to hope the markets do well to provide for our income stream.
You talked about the markets, up and down, right? Up and down. That can make people really nervous as they get closer to retirement. Should we be invested differently as we get closer to retirement or beyond the threshold of retirement?
Absolutely. You know, the younger we are, the more risk that we can take. We've got time for the markets to come back, go up and down, and not become over emotional about it. But as we get closer to retirement, we have to begin to re-diversify, reallocate, rebalance, become more conservative in our approach. Again, we hope the markets never go down. But the reality is, it's gonna happen. I mean, sooner or later, it's gonna happen. So again, we hope for the best, but we always plan for the what ifs and for the worst. So yeah, I mean, the closer we get to retirement, the more conservative approach that we want to take to it.
And that's something you help people find, right? Where they're comfortable, right? In terms of risk, because boy, you want to get that right. As you pointed out with the gentleman who came, if you're close to retirement, you don't want to be at too much risk. Yeah.
Well, if we over risk as we're going to the preservation or the income payout stage, it can have a devastating, catastrophic the way that we end our retirement. I mean, let's just say we had $1 million and we were taking $50,000 a year out for income. Market's correct, we'll just say 50%. On a flat market, my $1 million went down to $500,000. Oh, and I still have to take out 50. That is not good. Is it going to change the way you retire? Very well could. So we don't want to hope that the markets do well to make sure that we have the income that we need for life.
Most people are coming in and they just want to know they're going to be okay. You know, they're not sitting down and saying, oh, promise me you're going to make 8, 10, 12, 20%. They're saying, am I going to be okay? Because they want to live in retirement, enjoying the things that they want to enjoy, traveling, their grandkids. Especially for us, we'll be grandkids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and it's true. They deserve a great retirement. And
They've worked hard.
Indeed. And you want to have the confidence. You want to be able to enjoy it. Yes. That's what it's all about. All right. Steve, Stephanie, thank you. And straight ahead, we'll head into Stephanie's workshop for a look at some of the smart financial tools you may want in your own retirement planning toolbox. That's next in the Fullerton Factor. And still to come, Stephanie and Steve answer some of your questions. First, here's how you can contact Stephanie and Steve and the team at Fullerton Financial Planning. Stay with us.
You have a club for every scenario. A driver for the long holes. Wedges to get you over the hazards. And a putter for when you need a touch of finesse. What about your retirement? Will you have enough to play the back nine? Call to set your 15-minute phone visit today and let's find out. Get a second set of eyes on your retirement plan.
You're watching the Fullerton Financial Hour, where your retirement dreams begin.
Ever try to tackle a DIY project with the wrong tool? It sure can be frustrating. Today in the Fullerton Factor, Stephanie explains why having the right set of financial tools can make all the difference to your retirement. Stephanie?
In this week's Fullerton Factor, I want to talk about why it's so important to make sure you have the right tool for the job at hand. Let's say you got a little DIY project around the house. It could be something as simple as tightening a loose screw, where you just need a little screwdriver. Or it could be building a whole new deck out back, where you might need a little bit of engineering, saws, power tools, the whole works. But whatever the job is, if you don't start with the right tools, it could end up actually costing you more in the long run because mistakes could be made. The same is true when it comes to using the right tools when planning your retirement. You see, if you don't work with the ideal financial professional for your situation, the advice you receive may not be complete, or in some cases, it could be counterproductive. What am I talking about? Well, let's say you walk in and talk to your financial professional, but that professional works at, let's just call it a big box financial firm. In other words, they work for a firm where they can only offer you the tools inside that firm's toolbox. And it might look something just like this. You walk in and you say, I'm getting ready for retirement and I need some income planning. And so they reach into their toolbox and they pull out a tool that looks like a screwdriver. And they say, this is the tool we have that's going to help you solve your income planning needs. Here's what we need to do. And you say, okay. But then you go back in about 6 months, and now you're asking them for a little tax advice. Hey, I think I might have a tax problem this year, or even in the coming years. Do you have any tools that could help me solve that? And they say, sure. And they reach into their toolbox, and yet they pull out the same tool. And then you may go back later for a year review, and you're asking something more about long-term care planning questions, like long-term care insurance or estate planning. Whatever you're asking for, when they reach into their toolbox, all they seem to have is the same solution over and over again. Have you ever felt like that? Imagine trying to do that project at home and only having one tool to try and do every job in the house. It's gonna make things difficult, isn't it? Would you like to have the confidence of knowing that you can have access to the right tool for the right job? And it can be possible. And this is why we recommend you work with an independent-based financial planner who can go get any tool from any source anywhere in the world. And what that looks like is when we reach into our toolbox, we need a tool help us with, let's say, income planning. We've got that tool available. But what if you need a tool for things like risk management? Well, we've got a different tool available. And when it comes to tax planning, estate planning, we have all these tools to help you solve your problems, including tools that are available to help you with things like medical costs in retirement, something often overlooked by other financial planners. This is why we take a comprehensive approach to retirement planning. We want to make sure you have an access to the protection you need and you've got the right tool for the right job at every step along the way. So folks, whether you're taking on a small job or you're ready to get a second opinion on the blueprint of your financial house you're building, come in for a second opinion at Fullerton Financial Planning to make sure you have all the right tools to help you succeed in retirement. And that's this week's Fullerton Factor. Megan, back to you.
Still to come, we'll hear directly from you in our Q&A section, but first, here's a special offer from Stephanie, Steve, and the team at Fullerton Financial Planning. Stay with us.
When you address your financial concerns, it can lead to greater confidence about your future.
At Fullerton Financial Planning, our workshops focus on common issues that people preparing for and in retirement face.
Issues like income needs, medical expenses, and legacy planning. Many of the treasury relationships we built started with a visit to one of our workshops.
Call or see FullertonFP.com for a complete list of upcoming events and to register.
You're watching the Fullerton Financial Hour, where your retirement dreams begin.
Now it's time to get to some of the questions you have for Stephanie and Steve today, and this is always a fun part of the show.
It's
ready?
fun.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to dive in. First question from Maggie in Phoenix. Stephanie and Steve, someone told me I should explore an ILIT, an irrevocable life insurance trust. I looked into it, but it sounds really complicated. Can you explain what it is and who it benefits?
So the first thing I'm going to say to Maggie is, why are they saying that you need one? Because really we look at we call it ILITs, and it usually is used for life insurance. So what people don't understand on a whole is that when you get a life insurance, and let's say you make your trust the beneficiary, you might be running into a situation where between your ILIT, between your life insurance, between other assets, you could be blowing up your estate for tax purposes. The reason we get life insurance is because it's tax-free. So an ILIT, it allows you to put it over by itself, and it's treated in its own place. And it's complicated. So it's just, to give just a blanket advice to say this is why or how, really it's about coming in and let us take a look at it. Because you might need it, but then again, you might not. So why spend the extra money if you don't? But as a whole, it's to help, again, take care of those taxes that we don't want to pay if we don't have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And taxes keep coming up.
Right.
Boy. All right. This question is from Angie in Tempe. She says, my husband and I spent a good portion of our 50s caring for our elderly parents. We were happy to do it, but it was emotionally and physically draining. We do not want to be a burden to our own children. How can you help us with that?
Well, my mother-in-law, Stephanie's mother, cared for family like that. And it finally got to the point where the doctor told my mother-in-law, you either need to get some help outside of yourself, or you're the one that's going to be the one that needs the help. So it is different for every situation, but there are some strategies that are in place. Some require medical qualification, some don't, where you can get some assistance with some pre-planning on the part of our caller. You can do some pre-planning to put into place strategies that can assist so you don't have to become a burden to your children. But it's a case-by-case situation depending on what's right for who. So it really takes sitting down, discussing what your needs and your goals and your desires are to be able to help pre-plan for that situation. God bless them. Hopefully it doesn't occur, but if it does, we'll be prepared.
And Megan, I would say to Angie, because we are that sandwich generation.
Describe that. What do you mean?
Yeah, people look at me like when I say we're the sandwich generation, like, what do you mean? So we could be caring for our parents on one hand, and yet maybe have children or grandchildren that we're having to help on the other hand. So it really is looking at things very holistically. Okay, what do we want to be prepared for? Again, I always say this, we hope we never have to. But if we do, let's make sure that we're prepared to. And as Steve mentioned, my mom took care of my grandmother for years, and she had Alzheimer's, and it was a memory issue. And it just became, a 24-hour type of care. So we want to be prepared for that. If we need to do it, we want to be ready for it.
Think down the road.
Yes.
Okay, next question from Ray in Scottsdale. I bought several rental properties because I thought it would be a good way to generate retirement income. The cash flow has been decent, but the demands on my time are getting overwhelming. I feel like I can't enjoy my retirement. I want to stop being a landlord. What can I do?
Well, there are some strategies and rental properties can be a good source of income. Not always. And not always because you don't get the rent, but not always because you don't want to have to be the landlord of your properties. Certainly there are some other strategies that come in place that we could help replace that income without the additional burden with having to be a landlord with some properties.
And I would always say too, like with Ray and with anyone that's watching us today, yes, we're going to talk about taxes and capital gains. And you always want to make sure you are consulting with a tax expert on that to make sure that you're looking at brackets and how it's going to affect you overall. But, we do see people come in that are very real estate heavy. Well, there's a risk there. Because if you've got everything in one bucket, what if we experienced a real estate market dropout again, like we did back in 2007 and 8? Right. All of a sudden you find yourself against the wall. It goes back to what Steve said. 5 different ways to create income. At least try to get as close to 5 as you can. Real estate could be good for one, but don't have it all as one.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket, just like Mom used to say.
Yes.
All right. Our next question is from Tony in Chandler. He says, I always thought I'd retire in my 70s, but my wife retired last year, and now I see how enjoyable retirement can be. Are you able to show me if I can retire now at 64 and still have a successful retirement?
I love this type of question. And here's the reason why. I find this happening all the time. When people come in and say, well, my wife is going to retire at this age and I'm going to retire at this age, and there's always a difference, I will stop and say, are you sure? Because are you going to enjoy when you're going to work, they're still laying in bed or enjoying their cup of coffee, and always make them, think about it. But the great thing about the analysis that we do for anyone that comes into our office is that we're able to play with those numbers and say, okay, what if you were to retire a couple years early? Ultimately, how does that affect the longevity of your portfolio? So we have programs that allow us to put in the data, put in the information, and then kind of play with the puzzle and see exactly when is the right time for you to retire. Because by all means, if we could help him retire early and enjoy being with his wife, we want to do that.
Okay, so maybe Tony needs to give you a call.
Yes.
So hopefully you can deliver some good news. That would be really neat. All right, Stephanie, Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if you have a question, you are welcome to submit it. You can do that by calling the number on your screen, and maybe we'll use your question on a future show. We would love to do that. So don't hesitate to act on any of the information you've heard today. It never hurts to call, even if it's for that second opinion. Don't wait. Call now. For Stephanie, Steve, and the team at Fullerton Financial Planning, I'm Megan Mozak, hoping you have a great day and an even better retirement.